Recreational marijuana is now legal in 10 states across the U.S., showing a steady shift in opinion nationwide on the drug. In 2015, the New York City Cannabis Film Festival premiered for the first time. The festival was aimed to change the stigma of marijuana in the public perception. Now, the end of marijuana's prohibition era could be on the horizon in New York. That means 5 years after the doors opened, the 2019 festival could be the last one where weed is illegal in the state. Joining us now is the founder and CEO of High NY and author of The Entrepreneur's Guide to Cannabis, Michael Zaytsev. Michael, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So it appears that marijuana could be fast-tracked to be legal in New York. So do you think that this will be the end of sort of this counterculture type festival, or is this just the beginning?
I think this is just the beginning, and I think it's a very exciting time we're in. I believe the governor is expected to make an announcement next week about his plans for what legalization might look like in New York, and I'm hoping it's progressive and innovative and, actually puts New York at the forefront of this great new industry.
You talk about being innovative. What do you think is the biggest misconception about the cannabis culture?
Oh gosh, I think, the lazy stoner stereotype,
yeah.
That really bugs me. I believe that for a lot of people, this plant is a tool for accessing greater consciousness or for medical use and healing. So I think the biggest misconception is that this is a drug. I think this is a plant, and yes, some people do use it for, altering their consciousness. But I think the greatest misconception is how harmful the plant is, when in reality it has so many beneficial uses that we're not making use of today as much as we could be.
When you look back 5 years ago, when this entire festival started, when it launched 5 years ago, how was it received?
Within the community, people were excited, and I got a good turnout. We were able to sell out the first event to a small crowd. I wasn't invited to be on the news, though, so, it wasn't...
You didn't make it on CBSN, then?
No, not yet.
We weren't around then, so I guess that's okay.
I think people were excited, but they were still kind of... The filmmakers were not coming out the way they are now, where I feel now I think they think it's safer, and they don't mind having their name out there attached to this festival. They don't mind being public about maybe their own personal choices.
Because there was a stigma attached to this.
Oh, certainly, and there still is.
What do you think it'll take to sort of get over that?
A generation.
A generation. So you don't see this changing even if it becomes legal?
I think it will change, but I don't think it's going to happen overnight. I think there's still a ton of education that needs to happen. I think, there still is the stigma, and part of the festival's goal is to undo that and to normalize the cannabis lifestyle, whatever that means. And I think even a lot of people who consume or use cannabis don't know that much about it, so I think education all the way.
I want to talk a little bit about some of the films that you're featuring. One of them is titled Out of Options, and it shows the medical benefits of marijuana, sort of as a last treatment for children suffering from epilepsy. I want to play for you a clip.
Sure.
She's also so debilitating, and they've taken the life from my son.
He's almost died several times.
People that have tried multiple medications that weren't treating their symptoms now have access to something else, prescribed by a doctor. At the same time, we can do so much more.
Tell me a little bit more about this film. How is medical marijuana changing medicine?
Well, I think, as you see in that clip, you have a lot of people today that can't find a treatment option that's actually helping them, whether it's children with epilepsy, veterans coming back who are suffering from PTSD, cancer patients, and the list goes on and on. They're trying all these pharmaceuticals and all these options that aren't actually getting them relief, whereas here we have a plant that's fairly safe that actually can offer a wide range of relief. So shouldn't these sick people at least have the option to try this and to explore? And I think it's kind of sad and really frustrating that in some states they're not able to.
Even though your festival is called the New York City Cannabis Film Festival, everything doesn't revolve around pot. In fact, there's one film, I want to play a clip for you, called Bodega.
Yeah.
Bodega is a staple of the community. especially in Bed-Stuy.
The corner store is so important. It's the foundation of the block. It's the foundation of the hood. Like, you know, it's where you get your Dollar Fonto, your Bob Marley's, your roll-ups, all your things. Growing up in Brooklyn, right, is really where you go and you see people that you wouldn't normally see. That's the reason why they come outside. Some people come outside just to go to the corner store.
It's funny, bodegas are such a part of New York City life that many people outside of this area might not know. But tell me a little bit more about why this film was so important and the message that you're trying to send.
You know, this film, I think it was just so New York that I had to include it because the bodega is a uniquely New York cultural phenomenon. And I think just as we're seeing this paradigm shift in cannabis culture, and there's these questions of gentrification of the community and the industry and the commerce of cannabis, I think the bodega kind of mirrors that in a way that's interesting to see. And I think a lot of the audience would be able to relate to, you know, like myself growing up in Brooklyn, seeing how much it's changed over the years.
You know, you've played a key role in merging marijuana and businesses over the years. Some states seeing that legalization. How do you expect that relationship to evolve with commerce and marijuana?
I think it will continue to grow. I think the future is quite green. I think it's only a matter of time until we have robust international trade legally.
It's done well for Colorado.
It's done well everywhere. And it's done well in New York, but it's just been underground for many years. So I think the government is prudent to want to regulate and tax it and participate in the cannabis economy. I just hope they do it in a way that's going to be compassionate and inclusive and actually serve the little guy and, you know, the people who have been a part of this community before it was popular or cool or socially acceptable even.
I'm from Florida. When they started the lottery, and they still to this day, proceeds go to help Florida education. If pot becomes legal, who should benefit from that in this state?
Very simply, first, we should let everyone out of jail who has cannabis-related offenses, which New York City is the cannabis arrest capital of the world, which is pretty disgraceful, pretty shameful.
Yeah. The most arrests for marijuana anywhere is here?
Yes. And so, first of all, let's let all those people out of jail. And I think the economic growth needs to rebuild those communities that were damaged by the war on drugs and by, you know, the disproportionate enforcement of, you know, policy that should have never been law in the first place, in my opinion.
If marijuana becomes legal in New York, do you feel you would have played a small role or some sort of role in making this become legal?
A tiny, tiny, tiny role. People have been doing this work for decades. I'm standing on the shoulder of giants, and it's really a privilege that I'm able to be a leader in this community and contribute to something that I care deeply about and that I believe impacts the lives of many New Yorkers. So I'll take a tiny, tiny role.
Michael Zaytsev, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You bet.